everyone. Here we are. We're back at It Takes a Village. I am Jenny Schultz-Thomas. I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Sarah Rental-Jones. We are your co-hosts for the podcast. We have been reading through and talking about this book called Awe, The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life by Dr. Keltner. You might know the movies Inside Out 1 and 2. His research on happiness and emotions and the way that emotions can be made manifest and more in the minutia, right, expressed within human experiences. So he is somebody that you may know of without even knowing it, right? He brought anxiety to life in Inside Out number 2. But anyway, we are here and we're happy to be talking about awe, which is a really amazing and transformative emotional experience that we can have that really can transform our well-being, our health, and hopefully the societal health that feels pretty uncertain in these times. So, Sarah, how are you experiencing the book so far, or what would you like to share about awe in general?
Sure. No, I love the concept of awe and helping just awaken that part of your brain, the parts that help us to feel lifted up and a sense of possibility. Kind of as we talked about before, like that all is well and that we are these small beings in this vast universe. To me, that's actually comforting. It doesn't feel insignificant. It feels like, okay, some of the things that maybe I do get upset about can be put in their proper perspective. And I do really love finding a sense of awe in small interactions because sometimes it feels like that's all we have. We're not always able to go to the coast to see majestic waves or to get on top of a mountain. But we're always able to interact with each other and be able to have these small encounters that can remind us that humanity is a gift and that we will get through these times together.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I mean, knowing that those experiences are amazing and deeply transformative, right? The grand experiences, that are shared in these 8 wonders of awe. But the real wonder, right, the real power behind those experiences are the small things, right? The intentionality with which we have chosen to use our energy, right, to pursue that kind of uplifting experience. So whether you are looking out your window, right, at the beautiful trees that you've seen, the prairies that you grew up on, a stream or river, or just the birds singing outside your window, I think the beauty of this research says that you can experience awe anywhere you are, right? It's sort of this mindset when you're looking for. Reminds me of this book that I read a while back on the New York Times bestseller list called On Looking. And it was really lovely. So the intentionality of experiencing things means that you have to be looking, right? Talks about a parent walking their little 4-year-old down the sidewalk in New York City and the wonder and the awe of this 4-year-old every time they saw a little ladybug or a little, flower peeping through the cracks in the sidewalk. So that I love that you're talking about that because it's not only the mountaintops, right? It's how we experience daily life and choose to see that our source of strength really rests in one another, right? Because you can go to the mountaintop, but if you're alone or isolated or don't have that feeling of what he calls collective effervescence, right? You have for a moment something, but you might lose it when you kind of go back home or are away from the community or the natural world, which is also part of our living community. Yeah, so why? We asked this question, like, why? We're talking about awe, but why does it really matter? Why does it really matter, right? It can be a luxury, it can be a wonderful part of our existence, but why does it really matter? And in this research, and we talked about this a couple of times, but awe is defined as a feeling of wonder and vastness that challenges our understanding of the world, right? And you just shared about, the whole feeling of being a tiny little piece and that it wasn't overwhelming or disconcerting. It really gives you more life.
Right. Yeah, that idea that there's something greater that is organizing our universe, that gives me comfort and hope. And, I think sometimes in terms of stories and, I often think about the Lord of the Rings when I'm feeling like stressed and overwhelmed by the ways of the world.
Yes.
And, sometimes I just was thinking the other day, I'm like, I'm just a hobbit. I can't help. Yeah. But in the Lord of the Rings, they use little hobbits to go and destroy the ring and save everyone. So sorry if you didn't ever see it, that's a spoiler, but they
I-
do succeed. So don't worry if you
Just-
watch it. You could save yourself some stress.
The hobbits do succeed.
They do succeed.
Spoiler alert.
But just thinking about like all the times where we think we know how things are going to go and it seems locked into place. And then there's these tendrils of possibility that make things otherwise. That is a hopeful experience. Like, I mean, that's part of our faith, right? We thought that Jesus was dead when he was on the cross. And then it turned out that he was able to resurrect and conquer sin and death, as we say. You know, things like that just gives me hope that there's things that we can't always see that inject possibility into things.
Which, I mean, exactly, like the research and some of the points that are made throughout this book and throughout this typical happiness research in general is that awe is not a luxury emotion, right? It's this, I mean, just in our faith tradition that you just shared, right? Life and death, right? Conquering fear, doubt, uncertainty. Those things, that's not a luxury emotion. It's something deeply rooted in a brokenness, right? And in a hope that goes beyond our real deep understanding. And so awe, right? It transcends what we think we know, right? And then possibility. Out of nothing, here is life, right? Out of nothing, here is something. Awe also shifts, which I think is ultimately, for me, one of the most important parts of understanding that awe shifts our attention away from ourselves and towards something greater, helping us see beyond personal fear and struggle. I mean, if everyone could channel that every day, right? Because again, we're talking about pain, loss, uncertainty. The most, I think hopelessness might be kind of the close second to death. I mean, hopelessness is living death, right? When you're walking and living without hope, you know, so you have this shift away from your own circumstances or even the political uncertainty, you know, all around you, things feel hopeless. When you can take a deep breath, look out your window and see birds flying, right? You can see, wow, a new beginning. And that brain, that, you know, our brain chemistry is able to shift and give us that little rush of dopamine that says, no, wait, you can take one more step. You can find that hope. You have it within yourself, right? I think that is so powerful and rooted in the faith of love that is in everything, right? Hope and love, the two sides of the same coin, right? If you can shift your own thinking and find that power of love within you, right, that rushes to your brain, then you can do something with it. And that's sort of the impact of shifting our focus from self to collective well-being, right, or even our own well-being, but putting ourselves in a space of opportunistic hope. You know, then we can defeat those fearful, awful feelings that we have, right?
Yeah, and we need that. I mean, we need that to get out of bed in the morning sometimes when it just feels like, oh, great, another day to trudge, you know, and it's like, oh, there's something, what can I look for today that might enliven me, that might connect me to the natural world or to my friends and family. Just even, I mean, thinking about the body, right? Like how our hearts are beating and our bodies are living. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to control that. You know, I think sometimes for me, it's like reminders of things that I'm not in charge of, that I can let go and say, these things happen on their own. They're their own systems. And I can just look and wonder at them. That enough gives me, you know, an interruption in maybe whatever sort of dangerous thought pattern I've gone on.
Yeah, that's I mean, super powerful if you just think of one thing. That's a good example of when you get into the negative thinking of, and then it becomes anxiety or it becomes, gosh, I can't control anything. Like focus on the one thing that's going to happen, whether you are giving it energy or not.
Right.
And choose the one that's positive, like your heart beating, right? Or you're still going to wake up and you're still going to have that opportunity. I think these kinds of shifts in our perspective are crucial for our own resilience and also for collective resilience and action. Because you really are inactive when you're paralyzed by fear, right? And sometimes moving your body, moving your mindset toward hopefulness is the only way that as a community you can move forward. I mean, you think of civilizations, right, who were destroyed in times of war and, you know, everything was taken away. You know, you think of this, you know, the Israel-Palestine situation that we're in now and the Gaza Strip and how Palestinians who have lost everything are still telling these great stories of hope because they have this collective resilience, rooted in love and faithfulness in their home and their community. I mean, it's rooted in something, and they're continuing to take action. They're still birthing babies on a floor, on the ground, without clean water. They're telling these amazing stories of persevering through all kinds of loss, right? I think it's critical and crucial for us to not only keep moving, but keep telling those stories, right? Telling the stories is sometimes the one thing that someone who is living in hopelessness needs to hear, to know that, wow, maybe I can do that too, right? I can do that. Wow, that's amazing. And again, it calls us to something greater than our fear,
Right.
which our faith, gives us. We have
Yes.
hope, and we can do it.
Yeah. And the human spirit is really indomitable. It's amazing. I mean, it can be broken, but it can also be revived. And different stories about people who have gone through terrible things, and none of us wants to suffer or wants other people to suffer. But the idea that they're able to be reconnected with love and with other human beings and reattached to their families or new friends, it's just amazing. It's just amazing to think about all that is available to us. We have to sometimes tune into it.
No, I love that. I mean, keep telling the story of human persistence, perseverance, resiliency, and then it comes down to beauty, right? This whole idea of, it's beautiful to see those who were meant for life to choose life and to live life, and that life to then impact another life, right? The real beauty is when, against all odds, or where hate is flying in the face of hope, and then someone still chooses, right, to be a part of this whole, this greater whole. I'm going to choose life because I'm going to make sure that no one else, right, that this doesn't happen, that we're going to move forward with hope and resiliency and perseverance. Kelder shares so many stories in this book about awe in hard times. I think we all can connect to needing to find the awe, because we are definitely living in hard times, and the hard times is unique to each one of us. But collectively, I think in our country, we are definitely living at a time that we would call very, very hard. There's a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty about what will happen tomorrow. And no matter what kind of position you are in politically, right? If you're on this side or that or in the middle, it doesn't matter. Right now, uncertainty and fear about not knowing what is, right? Or not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, or even if our leadership, our government is going to play in the lines that have already been drawn, right? By Republican, Democrat, you name it. So I think we know that some people are facing harsh uncertainty, a reality that they may not have a tomorrow in the way that their today is defined, right? So I think pointing to collective effervescence, which we talked about the last couple of podcasts, probably one of the most tangible places to point to in terms of human resiliency and how we move together with action, right? Based on understanding that the power of awe is transformative when together, experienced together. It's not only transformative for individuals, but it has the potential to change the trajectory, right, of our society, of civilians, of anyone. So he talks about different experiences with marches and visuals and shared moments of hope. He shares that collective effervescence is when we feel deeply connected to others in a shared purpose. The civil rights movement, climate action protests, community vigils, moments of collective awe remind us of our power to create change. And if we've ever been a part of collective action that did make change and provide impactful life opportunities for those who are being harmed, we can call upon those and recall those moments and then use those in these times of uncertainty to give us hope that we can, in fact, make a difference. Have you any sort of story that you can name, either currently going on, either something that you've experienced or just that you've witnessed as society is kind of grappling with these new experiences under this administration?
Yeah, I think not necessarily directly. I wasn't able to go, but I know yesterday was a day of protests around the country in the capitals of our various states. And I have a friend who went to the protest in Minnesota and had some pictures, and a lot of people were willing to stop what they were doing. I know here we had weather concerns and other things going on yesterday, but just to see crowds of people coming together being willing to speak out and to let the administration know that they are not happy. I think that, we have the ability to do that, to gather. And I have a friend who was telling me about a march that she just like happened upon. She actually was coming out of a show. Like she had gone to see a live performance in theater with her spouse, and she lives in Michigan. And she said she came out and there was a protest and march going down the street, mostly of an immigrant who were speaking out about how they're being targeted. And she joined it. She parked and she just like joined in, and she kind of talked about what that did for her spirit. Not to really influence it or to do anything beyond joining this group who was saying like, we are here and we deserve to be here. We have rights. We are people, we are humans. And that really encouraged her. And I thought about that sometimes we might say like, well, what do protests do? Right. I think they do move the needle in terms of having a public witness, and they restore that sense of connection amongst people, knowing I'm not the only one who feels this way. There's this whole group of us out here with this common cause.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, takes that hopelessness away, that, nothing can happen. And I'm alone in this. Like, no one sees me, no one experiences that solidarity, right? That marching together. I think it was this week, National Immigration Day. It was either this week or last. But my wife is a teacher in a public school in Omaha. And, so many of the schools had half of their students or more than half of their students not showing up for school as an act of protest, immigrants saying, this is what the world would look like without us.
Right.
And you think about that act of solidarity and even what that means to say, I am going to stand in my own skin in the power of my own story. And I am going to take this action, even if there are some kind of consequences, because you don't really know, right? I mean, a lot of people protest intentionally and have, civil disobedience training and get arrested on purpose. But most of them are people of privilege who have weighed the consequences, or not all of them. Many are doing it because that action then leads to another form of impact. But, this opportunity to know that you're walking together, right? Forward together, not one step back, from the Moral Monday movements is going to be forever entrenched in my mind. But Dr. William Barber's movement, the Poor People's Campaign, is what he calls a fusion movement. Because you might have one form of discrimination, right, against you. And if you're walking with others who have different forms of discrimination against them, you're all walking together because the world has told you that it's hopeless, right? That you are LGBTQ or you are a transgender human being who does not have a right to live or exist, right? When you walk alongside of, right, immigrants who have been here working, who maybe don't understand your story, but they understand what it means to be hated or to be rejected or to be pushed out. He calls on the collective understanding of our faith, right? That together God breathes life into each and every one and calls, the stranger a neighbor, that welcomes the stranger. And so I think you naming that experience is probably more powerful than we know. It's like if you rise, it's sort of that resurrection out of death. When you rise and use your body and you embody, or whether or not you're walking or in a wheelchair or you're standing on the street or sitting looking out your window, when you're collectively giving your own spirit to that communal spirit, like hope rises within you in ways that you couldn't experience it alone, right? Collective effervescence.
Yep. Yes. I love that. I love that phrase so much.
I know. Let's just say it like 15 times today. Collective effervescence.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, another one of the items in the book that Keltner highlights is the natural world. We talked about that a little bit, but some of the things that we can always see that we don't have to travel to find are like a sunset or sunrise, walking in the woods, like you named, looking out the window. Even here where we're sitting, we can see the clouds in the sky, we can see the trees and the stream that's behind them. There is actually evidence that veterans with PTSD have found deep healing in programs that reconnect them with nature, like wilderness retreats and outdoor therapy. I know you're a very outdoorsy person. Does this resonate with you?
Oh, yes. I was thinking about, how my natural kind of instinct every time I just need an outlet, a stress relief is always outside. Hiking, running, just something outside. And during the winter, I'm a little bit of like a wuss, I guess, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to go and there's an icy street. But what I have found important for me, because I connect mostly to the natural world, that's where I find awe and strength and just kind of getting on the balcony, is just kind of sitting outside on my front porch. Even when it's really cold, I'll just wrap up and sit out there for 10 minutes. And I think breathing in and being connected to and feeling, because you can feel nature right? You can feel the cold on your face. It kind of just gives you this revitalized connection. Again, you're not alone, right? The trees, the world, the earth are kind of holding things together. And so the stark landscape of a pretty gray winter day here in Omaha, when no one's out there, no kids are running and playing, it's just kind of quiet and not the most beautiful like topography. It's just sort of there's this deep connection that I find that this is how things are today, and I can look around and see how things will be tomorrow. I have a friend, when we moved here, planted a baby oak tree in my front yard, and it has, the netting around it, and it's, slowly making its way. Well, right now it's this, 8-inch little twig, and there are no leaves on it. And I sit there and watch it and just think, how hard it is, right, to weather all of these conditions. It has no life around it. There's no grass, and it's still standing there. And I know that it will grow, slowly but ever so assuredly with this deep grounding, right? They dug so many inches down. And so it gives me a lot of hope. And I see myself in it. I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit like that right now. But tomorrow, it's going to keep growing, right? So I think just putting yourself in a place that you connect with in the natural world, it will always invite you to see it, right? If you open your eyes and you sit, you will always be invited in.
That's so true. I think that if you just look around, there's always something to notice. And even when we lived on Kauai, they have all of these like feral chickens. There's just chickens running around everywhere, and they keep propagating, and so it goes on and on. But I was thinking, like, I would preach a sermon on, notice the chickens, because each one is still different. They might be really annoying and they might be ubiquitous, but they're all a little bit different pattern, a little bit different color. Just noticing things, you can just notice these slight variations and be drawn into the wonder of nature, that there can be all of this life all around us. Even when it seems dormant, there's still opportunity for what is to come.
I love that. And I think that's, we're really thinking about, we know a lot of things, right? I'll be the first to admit, I know a lot of things. Talk about all the things I know. But how do we take the things that we know and believe in, the values we hold, or, think about awe. And we know, right, that this transformative power that can move our thinking and our anxiety, all the things emotionally, to this place of, I see myself, now what am I going to do with that deep sight in my own body, my own skin? How am I going to act, right, to continue that story, right, to gain that hope? So one of the things that you're talking about, and I think that, from preschoolers all the way on, that we do, is sort of we take little preschoolers on a walk, on a nature walk, right? And we point out things, right? And they see things. We say, you have X amount of time. And you don't really have to do much of anything but say, okay, little, children, we're going to go on a nature walk. I want you to find things, and then you're going to make a collage, and we're going to talk about it. They always, always see and notice the natural world. And it's in every stage, right? It might be the dandelion that is, completely poofed out, right? And they're going to pick it and blow it. Or it might be on the other side of that, and they're, oh, this one's dying, right? They just notice all the things. So one thing that we could say as homework would be to go on an awe walk. And it is cold outside, but put your gloves on, go to a park and just sit, for 10 minutes on a park bench, or even do it out your back window, right? Your little walk could be to the window, and then you're going to look out and just take 10 minutes to see what you notice, right? In the vastness, right? There is beauty to be found. And then how do you connect to it? Where do you see your own story in the landscape of the natural world? right? There is always something ready to be blooming, right? There's something in the ground that will come out. There's something starkly present that is already shedding last year's worries and regrets, right? So how do you see yourself in your own story? And let nature be your guide and your healer. You know, it's such a balm that we always, we kind of forget sometimes because we're in the hustle and bustle. So go on a walk with intention and then seek out small moments of awe and community.
Yeah, and we have the opportunity to do that when we're gathered here in the sanctuary and worship. Anytime that you do a service project with other people and you're working side by side. I know people who are members of our food pantry here and help to distribute food on the first Saturday of the month have talked about that, of laboring side by side with people to help do something good for others. All of those times, I think, you know, we don't emphasize enough how much as human beings we do co-regulate with each other, and we pick up on the just even the kind of the nervous systems of those around us, and the way that, you know, breathing in sync with other people, singing together with other people, it bonds us and connects us. And so even heightening your awareness of that, I think when you're in worship, can help to enhance the experience of it versus just kind of having, you know, you're running like to-do list of what am I going to do after I leave here today, you know, trying to be more in the experience and in the moment, knowing that that contributes to this sense of awe and it helps enhance it for the people around you too.
I love that you're saying that. I was recently having a conversation with someone about choral singing and hymn singing, right? Because pastors just talk about liturgy and church and worship all the time.
We do.
Well, that whole, because there's this 50-50 thing, right, all the time. Well, I don't really like hymns, or I just would rather have this, you know, performer who's singing perfectly wonderful. I think one of the most great things we can do for ourselves, even if we're not, because I'm not a great singer, right? But this sort of, and just singing is a great example. But when we have those hymns, right, they are so that, right, we can rise in body and spirit, and we can lift our voice so that we can have that experience of collective effervescence, that we know that something, it might just be you're kind of singing, you're standing there and you're listening to the array of voices that come together, and it does something to you, right? Even if you don't really sing, hearing it, you can sing with your spirit, it does. So I think those moments, like put yourself in that moment intentionally, whether it's singing with a chorus, swimming on a team, going on a walking group, reading the same book, and then sitting, you know, in a book study. So there are subtle things that we can do that really just, again, in that 30-second window, we can shift our thinking, our mental space, and then hope kind of rises within us, which is such a gift.
Yes. Yes, I know. I've had so many times, if I move to tears in worship, it's generally when we're singing, when there's music, because it shifts something within us.
Yes.
So we hope that this week you will cultivate awe and do some of these action items that we've provided. You have anything that you especially plan on?
I plan on going outside as much as possible and taking, you know, going on a few walks with friends. You know, we grab our coffee, sometimes take the kids to school, and then kind of continue the walk and just lengthen the time that I refresh myself in the morning outside. And we want to hear from you all, right, Sarah? What are you planning on doing this week?
I think that I will also try to go outside more. I admit that I always call myself an indoor cat because I don't feel as drawn to go outside, but I always know it's so good for me, good to get the fresh air, and even just to sit outside with a cup of coffee, like you're saying, bundle up, go out for 5 or 10 minutes, notice what's happening around me.
Yeah. So this week we would love for you all to reach out. If you experience awe, if you have some kind of lovely noticing and you'd like to share it, reach out. You can email us. You can always call, and we'd love to hear from you. Know that awe is part of our everyday life and that you yourself are awe and wonder. So thank you for adding your story to our story. We'll see you next week.